when you go there in that stage and deliver a topic which you do not have credibility in, it always fails. So you always must look within bago ka mag-share with other people.
Hi everyone, this is Charles Ladia and welcome to Speaking Of, where we talk about stories of being and becoming. And speaking of, this episode talks about one of our greatest fears, public speaking. How do we prepare ourselves before this dreaded oral presentation? Sabi nga nila, preparation is already winning half of the battle. So how do we prepare for this battle? Our guests for episode 7 are my colleagues at the University of the Philippines, Department of Speech Communication and Theater Arts, and they teach Speech 30, which is a course on public speaking and persuasion. Please welcome to Speaking Of, Ma'am Christine Magpayo and Ma'am MJ Sumilong. Hi, Tin. Hi, MJ.
Hi, Charles. Hi, everyone.
So, Ma'am Tin, Ma'am MJ, these questions that I have for you are questions from students. So I collected these questions so that these are questions that they want answers so that they can prepare for their public speeches. But before we start, how long have you been teaching public speaking? Si Ma'am Tin.
This is my 5th year in the university. So we came together, Charles, after the 7th and 5th year.
Yeah. Si Ma'am MJ.
This is my 3rd year in the university, pero prior to that, I was a corporate English trainer for, I think, around 2 years. So, ayun, mga 4 years collectively.
Wow. So, ibig sabihin sa sobrang daming years na ito, you've heard hundreds or even thousands of public speeches already. So, talagang may aspect na rin na sanay na tayong makarinig ng mga public speeches, but also automatic na yung criticism natin and comments natin in the public speeches that we are hearing. And of course, I know Ma'am Tin and Ma'am MJ, suki din tayo sa mga public speaking conferences and on competitions as well. First question. One of the very first questions that my students ask would be, what is the topic that I want to talk about? How do I know if this is the perfect topic for me in my public speech?
All right. To answer your question, let's look into the theoretical foundations of public speaking. So, Aristotle, ethos, pathos, logos. But let's zoom into ethos. How do you choose a topic? We need to consider ethos. And what is ethos? In Speech 30, we know it as, it's as simple as credibility. We associate ethos with the word credibility, but it has 3 components, which are phronesis, good judgment, arete, good character, and eunoia, goodwill. And how does this relate to choosing a good topic? The thing about choosing a good topic is that you must always be true to who you are, because if you do not have the credibility, if you do not have good judgment, if you do not have the experience, if you don't have the character for it, you can't really, you can research all you want, you can give us the best facts, the best research, but when we don't see it in your personality, in your character, and if we don't feel that you are actually doing it for our good, for the audience's good, it will always fail. So you always have to look into your credibility, your ethos as a speaker.
Mas practical side of things and mas contemporary. Si Ma'am Tin ay suki natin for classical rhetorical theories. Yung mas contemporary, I think, is mas practical. Although rhetoric, it's not prescriptive with regards to the subject matter. Diba? Alam natin yan na hindi porket gagamitin natin yung public speaking ay dapat something political or something global or something of a large scale. It's very important to consider na ultimately, sabi pa lang ni Aristotle up until the contemporary rhetorical theorists na isipin natin yung topic at hand should not just benefit ourselves but also for the good of the community, for the good of our audience. And I guess one of the topics din kasi na tinatanong sa akin at nilabas ni Sir Charles din is paano kukunin yung common ground between what you're
Mm.
interested in and what the audience should be interested in. And I guess to parang sum it up, a good topic should be something you're passionate about, sabi nga ni Ma'am Tin, and something that you know of and something that translates empathy and um, sincerity. Pero we forget to consider na dapat mararamdaman yun ng audience natin because the topic itself concerns them. The topic itself, they should realize that it's for the good of their community, the good of them as well. So
I'll give an example.
Go.
This is sobrang passe na niya, sobrang overused. But for example, if you want to deliver a persuasive speech and your topic is smoking, however, your classmates are your friends, diba? Your classmates are also your friends and they know you to be a chain smoker. So even if you're a good researcher, diba? Tapos biglang haharap ka sa kanila, sasabihin mo sa kanila, quit smoking or no smoking, but they themselves know that you are a smoker, it doesn't make sense. So even if best thesis ka pa, kahit sumastanding ka, when you go there in that stage and deliver a topic which you do not have credibility in, it always fails. So you always must look within bago ka mag-share with other people. So yun yung super specific example.
Okay. Thank you. Very, very interesting yung mga examples, no? Very theoretical but also very practical. Sabi ni Ma'am Tin, be true to who you are. Very Disney princess yon, but very applicable to our situation. Sabi nga ni Ma'am Tin, look within for your speech topic. Sabi naman ni Ma'am MJ, it should be something that you're very passionate about. Okay, so just a quick quiz. Kunyari si Ma'am Tin at si Ma'am MJ ang gagawa ng speech ngayon in a speech 30 class. What would be your speech to persuade topic?
Something that I'm passionate about and something that I care about and should be for the good of my students and for the community is, of course, advocating for mental health, specifically self-care. I think that it's relevant. It's very, very relevant due to the exponential increase of mental health issues, especially in the pandemic. But moreover, it's something that I've personally struggled with. And I've always been open to my students na it's a struggle. It's a personal struggle. So, ayun, I think relevant siya. Makaka-relating students, it's something that I'm passionate about, speaking about. Tapos, ayun, it's timely also.
Yes. And you're very credible in speaking about this topic. Sure. What about you, Ma'am Tin?
Sana.
Siguro sasakyan ko yung sinabi ni MJ, but I'll go more specific because I'm actually more fond of doing personal narratives. Well, under the impression that everything is persuasive to persuade the audience to pursue their passions. It's very Disney princess, diba? To pursue their passions and you think it's just something so, ang dami kasing issues niyan. You think it's something so simple, but ang dami kasing usapan on privilege, diba? Right. But if you're going to talk about mental health, mako-cover mo siya eh. Diba? What's the cause of this? Why are we suffering? Why is there struggle? Because we're trying to live up to the expectations of others on us. So, yun din, it's a strategy siguro on selecting a topic. You can go something as big as I advocate for mental health. And do your research on it thoroughly. And you can go something as specific as, I suggest that you shift out of the program if you're unhappy. Something as specific as that. And just own it. Make it your story. Make it your narrative. Make your life a testament to what you're advocating for. So it doesn't have to be, diba, ang hirap kasi tinatanong nila, ma'am, is this too broad? Ma'am, is this too specific? The thing is, it's always up to you. Like, what's enough for you? What are you willing to work on? So,
yes. Ang ganda, MJ and Tin, nung idea nyo na look within yourself, but also look at what the audience will love listening to. Tapos nakita ko rin sa application yung dalawa na talagang it's your own advocacy, but you make it more specific gaya ng ginawa ni Ma'am Tin so that the audience can easily relate to it. But the next question is, kasi sinasabi nyo kanina pa na you need to find a common ground with your audience. But how will I know the audience that I will speak to? Paano ko sila makikilala ng lubos? Paano nga ba ang audience analysis pagdating sa public speaking?
Okay. This is where pathos comes in, emotional attachment to the audience. And one of my favorite parts of the Speech 30, teaching Speech 30, is actually autobiographical storytelling. And what do we learn from autobiographical storytelling? It's that emotions are universal.
Mhm.
And where does that put us? It means that not everyone has experienced losing a dog. Not everyone has experienced losing a parent, but everyone knows loss. And we
Mm.
know how loss feels. And so we capitalize on that, knowing that every person in the audience has been acquainted to loss means we can use our own loss to touch into their knowledge of what loss is. But also, how do you connect to the audience? You have to think of humans as, yes, we're complex, we're different, but we all want our happy endings. And that's why you always end on a, for me, I like ending on a positive note more than anything else. Primarily because you want an audience that's hopeful after your speech. Yes, you can make them afraid. Yes, you can instill fear. But at the end of the day, what does fear do, diba?
Mm.
And I'm just not here to scare you. I want to be there to make you realize what you're afraid of, and to also make you realize that you can conquer that fear. And that's for me, that's really that. Audience analysis is really a play on emotions, but you really have to be good with words to be able to tap into the emotions of your listeners.
Ako ulit yung parang mas practical side, since Tin tends to tap on more theoretical, more specific applications. For me, of course, initially when you're writing your speech, to appropriate your topic and the content to your audience, I suggest, syempre, meron tayong canons, di ba? 5 canons of rhetoric, meron tayong canon of invention, you research about your audience demographics, but sometimes, or most of the time, especially if the audience is unknown, parang meron ka lang idea, rough idea, mahirap yon. Mahirap na sabihin na ang audience mo lang ay 50-year-old women or senior citizens. Mahirap siya. So, I am echoing natin on putting the audience in the right frame of mind through pathos. But also, another parang alternative that people, you guys, can do, and something I do as well, is you look into the more contemporary perspectives on persuasion. Kaya ng mga theories natin sa Speech 30, like the social judgment and the elaboration likelihood model. Because when you look into these theories, you'll understand that there are specific type of people who are persuaded by specific types of or means of persuasion. For example, alam niyo yan, may mga applications ito marami through advertisements na kaya ang advertisements natin ay maraming pathos, maraming emotional appeals, maraming celebrity appeals kasi yung general public, collectively, you can take them as, peripheral thinkers. People who think peripherally. Because with advertisements, you're also limited to 30 seconds, 1 minute, ganyan. So consider all these things. Consider your audience. Consider how they are more than their demographics. Yan.
We have a topic already. Check. We already know the audience. Check. So in preparing your speeches, ang pinakamabigat talaga dyan, Tin and MJ, would be your stage fright. Or di ba sa atin, di ba it's what we call public speaking apprehension or public communication apprehension. Kayo ba kinakabahan pa pag nagde-deliver ng public speeches or pag nag-lecture in front of your students?
It depends on the audience. I don't feel the apprehension with my students kapag ka mid-sem na. But I always feel anxious on the first day of classes because again, this is the start of audience analysis. You realize, ito ba yung type ng students na tatawa sa joke ko? Kasi pag hindi, patay tayo kasi hindi ko naman pag-iisipan ulit yung jokes ko paulit-ulit siya. So, yun. Pero eventually, di ba, nawawala siya eh.
Ma'am, you'll get the feel of the class.
For you, MJ.
Ako,
Yeah.
That is similar, pero kunyari public speaking engagements, hindi na, because I guess na-desensitize na ako with so many things, ganyan, and many opportunities. I get more, di ba meron tayong two types. Meron tayong process anxiety
Mm-mm.
and performance anxiety. I get very, very antsy in writing the speech itself because I think I feel more pressured into writing a speech that not only reflects good arguments and is very reflexive of myself, but also people pleaser kasi ako, alam niya yan. Alam niya ni Tin. I like and I guess that anxiety is rooted in that in that expectation
Mm-mm.
that I would want to please my audience. Sa performance anxiety, marami naman tayong, 'di ba? Maraming hindi naman prescribed ways na nilalagay dun sa mga textbooks natin, yung mga power pose, visualization, cognitive modification, ganyan. It's really about finding what works for you as a person, 'di ba? Power pose doesn't work for me because I have terrible posture. Pero sa performance anxiety for me, I think mas madali siyang i-combat than
Mm.
process. With process, I really take so much time, especially if my audience mas formal, ganon. The speech is more formal in setting.
Okay. So, may ritual ba kayo before doing a public speech or before doing a public presentation? Meron kayong process na pinagdadaanan?
Siguro if I'm going to give na lang an advice to people, kasi ako nga, pagka yung teaching part of me, I don't have anxiety anymore because I've been doing it for 5 years. It's the same lesson for 5 years. Diba? And I prepare for it every single week. I have to teach it. That's it. It's really, it all boils down to preparation. But what about for those students who are doing it diba, for the first time? What about
Mm-mm.
those students who will only deliver this speech once and they only get that one chance in the semester? Diba? Like, how do you prepare for something na you will be graded on?
Right.
And what I tell my students, I always tell my students this in the last lecture day, right before the consultation and the delivery of speeches, you have to understand and you have to, it's about having the right frame of mind. You have to think about this. And you don't have to consider me, your teacher. You don't have to consider your classmates as, as judges. We don't listen to you to judge you. We listen to you because we want to learn from you. And once you shift talaga your mind na parang, hindi ako nandito para mahusgahan, nandito ako para mapakinggan. It makes a lot of difference.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, di ba, parang, you think that's the thing about it. You think it's conceited to just go on that stage and tell people, hey, listen up, because I have something important to say. And if you don't believe that, you're not gonna get better at all. So that's why we always start with intrapersonal communication. That's why intrapersonal communication is very important in public speaking, because you have to first realize that you are important for you to believe that what you're going to say is also important, and it's going to be important for other people as well. So it's a lot of personal work more than we can talk about technique, but at the end of the day, for me, babalik at babalik siya sa self-concept, self-esteem, and so on.
Yes, ang ganda ng cognitive modification. No? Talagang shift of perspective talaga yung kailangan dito, that your audience or your friends, right? There are some people who would say, think of the audience as naked individuals. Diba? Parang ayoko rin naman siyang isipin.
Pauwash tayo.
That they don't know me. So after 5 minutes, they might forget about me, or I'm just going to give it my all in this public speech. Ikaw, si MJ, what would be your ritual or your frame of mind before doing a public speech?
Ako personally, and something that I also share with my students is, similar kami ni Ma'am Tin, na I want to think, and I want my students to think that when they're in front of an audience, the audience ultimately don't want them to fail. They ultimately want what's best for you as well. Sino ba? Wala namang tamang sane person na nasa audience na secretly nagja-judge na sana mag-fail ka. Diba? And they are there because they want to listen to you. I mean, yes, they're part of the class, but the fact that they're there, they're listening to you, their eyes are on you, means that they intently want to listen to what you have to say. And that yun nga, parang lagi ko na lang, I tell myself that whenever I have speaking engagements, workshops, or in class, ano siya, it's an internal thing that you have to tell yourself constantly na I'm here in front of people because I want to teach them and I want them to be better. And that translates also eventually with the delivery. So, diba, yun nga, yung pre-speech rituals mo, you have to fool yourself, keep telling yourself this. And as a matter of fact, it does translate when you're delivering it na parang your nonverbals make you seem like you're more sincere. You establish more eye contact because it's true. You are in fact addressing your audience directly na parang your friends even though hindi mo talaga sila kilala.
Yes. Thank you very much, Tin and MJ, for sharing your pre-speech rituals. So, what are the other parts of the speech can we prepare before we deliver it?
I'm gonna be technical about this. I'm going to cite the yung 8 factors affecting the Filipino communication apprehension. This is by Ma'am Chit del Villar.
Yes.
And I enumerate yung 8, but I won't discuss this. Hindi naman to speech 30 class. So it's 1, expectations, 2, training and exposure, 3, audience, 4, self-evaluation, 5, rejection, 6, verbal fluency, 7, preparation, and 8, previous unpleasant experience. Why is it important to know these factors affecting communication apprehension? Because once you identify saan ang gagaling yung fear mo, mas madali, it's easier to attend to it when you know where this fear is coming from. So for example, all your life, akala mo takot ka mag-public speaking because of the audience. You think the audience is going to judge you. But apparently, hindi ka naman pala dun takot. Akala mo lang sa audience ka takot. Apparently, your communication apprehension is coming from your lack of verbal fluency. Diba? So why are you afraid? You have to know why. Pinagalitan ka ba ng teacher mo kasi may mali kang sinagot ng grade school ka at na-trauma ka at hindi ka na makapagsalita? Because if that's the reason you're afraid to speak in public, you have to conquer that. You have to acknowledge, this is that moment that changed my life forever. But you don't have to let it control you anymore. Because even if you have, yun nga, sabi ko, some people are afraid of public speaking because they feel they don't have training and exposure. Some people get so much training and exposure, but they're still afraid. And again, it's because of a previous unpleasant experience. Some people prepare and prepare and prepare, but still fear it. But again, you have to know why. This is also something I share with my students. I think it's Macrossi, communicative competence. Dapat ba? Macrossi yun. There have been a lot of studies on communicative or communication competence, and what it's saying is basically you evaluate yourself harsher than your audience do. What does that mean? If level 6, if ang score mo sa sarili mo ay 6 out of 10, the audience probably thinks of you as an 8 out of 10. And it's comforting for them to know it. Kasi at least, sinasabi ko sa kanila na, if feeling mo naka 6 out of 10 ka, good na yun. Kasi I'm gonna assure you, the audience thought of you as something more than you see yourself. And, ayun, so try your best to, kaya nga yun that's the advice, watch yourself in the video. If you're not happy with it, pero pumasa na siya sa iyo, papasayin sa audience mo. So, you have to evaluate yourself before you let others evaluate you if ayun nga yung source of apprehension. So you have to identify which among the 8 is that biggest contributor to my fear. And then you address that.
Ako naman, I tend to be more on the prepper side. Mas prepper ako with regards to, di ba, we recognize that, or at least kay Bitzer, meron tayong rhetorical constraints. And that, for me, aside from, syempre very important, sabi nga ni Ma'am Tin, to get to know yourself and to try to conquer whatever that fear is coming from with regards to public speaking anxiety. It's not an easy process. It's not something that you can do overnight, but through maybe exposure and through many, many other interventions you can. With regards to preparing the speech itself, marami, siguro maganda i-consider natin yung mga possible constraints that we can think of. Pwedeng internal, pwedeng external constraints. Siguro yung internal constraints are something that we have control over ourselves, yung ating verbal, paraverbals, non-verbal dimension. And then yung content mismo nung speech, 'di ba? We have your canon of arrangement to thank for that. And at the same time, gusto ko rin play yung i-emphasize yung importance ng yun nga, topic outlining and everything. Yung canon of invention and canon of arrangement kasi for me are very important things to not master but to consider in writing your speech, because for me and I guess in some of my students as well, it gives them parang a padding, a sort of, yeah, parang padding, a layer of confidence when they are able to satisfy those. Parang, especially if your anxiety comes from process anxiety talaga, na at least nakakabawa siya for me if not if I go by the rules, but if I have some sort of guide with regards to how I organize my topics and my arguments, ganyan. And then of course, kasabay nun, I work on myself as well. Sabi nga ni Ma'am Ten kanina.
Yes. Ang ganda ng mga tips na binigay nyo in preparation for a speech, no? Just to give some keywords, we all talked about self-love and self-concept, lalo na yung pag-prepare natin sa ating mga sarili. Second is control what you can control as early as now before you do your public speech. So whatever it is that you can prepare for, you can also prepare for it. So thank you for these tips, Ma'am Tin and Ma'am MJ. Now,